Hello and welcome to 360 Gamercast, episode 165 for Tuesday, the 16th of May 2023. This is the NES/SNES special. I'm your host, Mark Webb, gamertag Webby360G, and joining me today is...
Hello everyone, it's Sensei Switch.
And I'm Alex from the Arcade Archive, the Classic Cornet Museum in Stroud, Gloucestershire.
Well, hey, what an intro.
Well rehearsed.
Yeah, I can imagine. So obviously we haven't spoken to you for quite a while, Alex. You've been quite busy.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. And obviously since this is more the SNES, I think, is your thing. But since this is the NES/SNES special, you were the perfect guy to come on as well. Obviously because of your massive collecting of Super Nintendo games, but also I wanted to get you on because you opened up an arcade museum. Was it early this year or late last year? I can't remember now.
Towards the end of last year. I think we opened up late November. It's a long time ago. I'm not trying to remember. So yeah, it must be nearly 6 months now. Excuse me. Yeah, it's a classic coin-up arcade museum in the heart of the Cotswolds. And it's obviously, it's been a passion of mine collecting not just Super Nintendo games, but arcade games as well. In fact, my YouTube channel now is 10 years old. And if you go right back to the beginning of my early videos, it was always arcade related. And the opportunity came about to open up a museum in a building, an old mill, which I share with two other businesses, Heber Electronics and Neil from the Retro Cave. And I thought it was a marriage made in heaven, really, because already there's foot traffic coming through the Neil's Museum. He's got the Computer and Console Museum, and Heber are wizards with repairing electronics. So, it was an opportunity I thought I'd take by the horns and go with it,
Yeah.
It's been hard work. But I'd like to rise to that challenge. It's been difficult getting the machines there, but the community's really helped out. So we had lots of people from the community donating and loaning cabinets.
Oh, that's great.
As well as my collection has gone into the museum. And over the time we've been buying them as well. So I've been picking up some really cool and rare machines that have, from a sort of pioneering standpoint, a lot of history and a lot of stories to tell, and that's the whole point. It's not as big as the arcade club or anything like that. It's a big enough space to house about 45 machines, and I think you can tell a good story with 45 machines. From sort of like, we've got a Sega Gunfight from 1969, which is an electromechanical game, and I got that because A, it's Sega. But B, also it gave inspiration for Midway's Gunfight. So that if you can imagine in your head, before video games, if you were a designer, what does a video game look like? So they turned to electromechanical games for inspiration, and Sega's Gunfight was one of them. So we've got that in the museum, although it's not working. It still needs a lot of work. We've got a Atari Pong, first successful video game. And then I'm trying to tell like a story, what we call for like the Bronze Age era of the black and white games that are mainly on timers. So like Seawolf and Blue Shark. Very simple gameplay, on a timer, but still the cabinets are beautiful. They've got this Pepper's Ghost effect, which is an illusion that the Victorians were using back in the day to create a ghost effect.
Oh, nice.
They all do that, and they look really cool, And then, Space Invaders really starts the classic late 70s, early 80s classic era off, because that's really where it all started with Space Invaders. And then we go straight into all the other games. We've got all the classics there, like Q*bert, Star Wars Upright, Gauntlet, Track and Field is really popular. And loads of jammer cabs. We can put 90s shooters in there, and Neo. I've got Neo Geo in there as well. I've got all my MVS carts in there, so people can come in, pick a game they haven't played before or haven't played for years, and I can change it around for them in the cabinets. So it's really interactive. I get really hands on with everybody and tell the history of the whole thing. So I'm
Oh,
enjoying.
excellent.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun.
That's
Yeah, that was
fantastic.
the weird thing with the Neo Geo, wasn't it? That was actually sort of set up to be like have at least 3 different games per cabinet, hence like obviously multi-video system.
Yeah, so you've got like the 4 slot, which is quite unreliable. The 4 slot motherboard are quite unreliable. Or you've got the 2 slot or 1 slot. I don't know if there's a 3 slot. I'm not sure if there is
I'm
a
trying
free
to
slot.
remember which ones there were. I just remember the ones I always came across had at
Yeah.
least
So at
two
the
or three.
moment, I'm restoring a Lord's Vale Neo Geo machine. So at the moment, we've just got a 1 slot in a jammer cab because you can have an adapter so it fits jammer. um, and I can just swap the games in and out. Bubble Bobble's really popular, or Puzzle Bobble rather. Just get those two muddled up. Windjammers is always popular. The Turf Masters. It's surprising, really. There's actually a lot of games on the Neo Geo that are really, really good. A lot of people think of it as a fighting sort of multi-system, but there's a really cool amount of other games.
Mm,
Loads of sports games like Sidekicks, Baseball Stars.
That's it, yeah. And then you've got all the Metal Slugs, the Run and Guns, Cyberlip, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it makes for a different experience. Again, it's sort of going into the 90s, which is kind of where we stop, really, because if you want to experience anything beyond that era, then you go up to the computer museum, the console museum, because
yeah,
Neil's
that makes
Neil's
sense.
got all those up there. You see, if you want to play on um, the later systems, the Amigas and the N64s, the PlayStations, they're all upstairs. But arcade-wise, we stop sort of at Street Fighter, which is one of the games I've got to get up and running there as well, because I know that's going to be popular.
The original one with the 2 buttons or whatever it was.
I'll probably put Turbo in there or something else. The original
Yeah.
one's not great, is it?
Oh,
No,
shit.
I just remember it having you had a button, and depending on how hard you pushed it, was
Yeah,
the
no,
different attack
yeah,
rather
I
than
know
the multiple buttons.
that's not a good game, Darren.
No, it wasn't. I wasn't impressed by it back when I used to see it
Yeah,
in the
I
day.
mean, it'll either be like a Street Fighter Turbo Edition or Marvel versus Street Fighter, something like that, and then maybe a Mortal Kombat next to it as well, because they're the main two that really changed the fighting genre, didn't they, at that era? Um, whichever one you prefer. I like both of them, to be honest with you. I
Mm,
think they're both fun games. Um, but yeah, it's been a challenge trying to keep them going or get them working.
yeah, so I've been trying to keep up to date, like because you're very well, you've been very good at posting up pictures on social media and
Videos as
videos
well.
and stuff, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been, and I know some of the other guys from the podcast have been trying to keep up with them all, and we've been quite impressed with all the effort and hard work that's gone into it.
Oh,
Um,
thanks. I
yeah,
mean,
so as I say, we are trying to arrange to get up to see you, but plug it, mate. Where give us the address. How do you book a ticket? What days you open.
at the moment we're just open Saturdays, although I have been open Sundays recently. If the demand is there, it's in Stroud, Gloucestershire, in a little village called Chalford, just out of Stroud, and it's in an old mill. And you can book tickets at the Retro Collective, which is our website, or just go to the Arcade Archive, my own website. It will send you links to where you can get the tickets from. And you can book the day there, so you could do the cave in the morning. There's sort of 3 hour sessions, which is normally
Nice.
enough for most people. A
Yeah.
lot of people do the cave in the morning, where it's quite a chilled atmosphere. You can go up there and sit down and play all the old consoles, and in the afternoon, come down to the arcade and get a better discount if you do both. So it's a
Nice.
great day out, and it's a nice place, Stroud, as well. If you want to bring your partner along and go for a nice coffee or something, there's loads of little antique markets and small businesses around. So it is a beautiful little town. I can't recommend it enough. It's really, really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, mate. No, it's and I hope I hope it carries on going well, and it'd be nice if you got the traffic to open it up a few more days as well. I know
Yeah.
weekdays. I know people are working and stuff, and so I'm guessing that
Well, the
demand just
plan,
isn't there on the weekdays.
it isn't. No, I mean, a plan to do, as I say earlier, I was saying to you about getting a music license there, so I can do theme nights like an 80s night. We
Yeah,
do parties there. If people want to have a party there, kids' parties, adult parties, corporate parties, all of that.
yeah,
We're encouraging people to do, because that's what I want. That's where the fun is.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic. So let's move on then about the NES and the SNES. So we'll talk about the NES first, and I don't think we're going to be too long on the NES because, I mean, personally, I don't have a lot of memories from it. I'm not sure about you guys, but coming from arcade games is quite an interesting kind of segue because before the NES or the NES or however you want to talk about it, Nintendo made arcade games and then they moved to the home console market from arcade games. So obviously it's quite an interesting transition really because Nintendo did make a lot of classic arcade games. I know one of the ones that Sky Skipper for you was one of the ones that kind of
Yeah.
faded into obscurity because Nintendo repurposed the boards, didn't they, to make another game?
Well, yeah, it was a flop. So I think
Yeah,
they made 12 cabinets, destroyed 11, and they kept one at the vaults at NOA, which is where my story sort of
yeah,
kicks off.
yeah.
But yeah, they were, with their hits from Donkey Kong onwards, they had some great
Mm,
games.
yeah.
And I think their first in-house arcade game was Donkey Kong Jr. Every game before that was programmed and
Oh,
coded by a company called Ikigami. They just come up with the ideas and the Ikigami
ah,
program. That's why I think Donkey Kong. Um, they had trouble getting Donkey Kong onto a lot of home consoles for many years because they didn't have the rights to it. I think
oh,
Ikigami did. That's why it took so long. I think it only recently came out on the Wii was when they
oh,
finally
wow.
got. But yeah,
See,
they were they what they thought was they had these hits in the arcade. Let's bring them into the home, and that's how they managed to survive. Really, because America had the crash, remember,
yeah,
and
they
then
did.
they got over that hurdle with bringing out this toy, and they did. They advertised it as a toy, really, didn't they? An entertainment system. It wasn't a to get
Yeah,
around the whole gaming issue of of the whole collapse. They thought would market it.
yeah. Well, what's quite
So I think
interesting when I was looking at the Wikipedia was just the release dates. So in Japan, it's actually called the Famicom, not called the
yeah,
NES, and it's a completely different shape to what we know as the
Mm.
boxy square NES. It's kind of got the red controllers that are attached onto it. I don't think they actually detach from what I've seen on the pictures, and they
I've
kind of
got
cradle in
yeah,
the
I've got
side.
that's right. They're very short the cables as well. I've got one in front of me, and I've also got a Famicom. Sorry, I've got a Sharp Famicom Twin, which plays discs as well as carts.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's got an extra sound channel. So the actual music in the games coming out of the Famicom Twin are better, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, it's a great little system. I like it. There's some really good arcade ports on it, as well as some great little console games. I've had,
Yeah,
I've been collecting for it for years. Although I have slimmed my collection down more recently. But yeah, it's a great little system. I don't know how many they sold, but
well, I
must have
can
been.
tell you. Um,
I think it's still being sold now, isn't it? Like
um,
in Japan, I think you can still go and get them.
well, so I've got on Wikipedia. I'm just going to go through it quickly. So the release dates are quite interesting because in Japan it came out in July 1983, and then it didn't come out in North America until October of 1985. And then it didn't come out in Europe until September 1986.
Mm.
So there's a 3-year gap between Japan and Europe, which is
Yeah,
massive. And
yeah,
it sold worldwide 61.91 million units.
yeah. That's pretty
When
good.
video gaming was a very niche market
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Well, Nintendo got a lot of flack because they had a lot of control over the companies and what they released. And they
yeah.
did that because of the crash, because of what Atari did. They overproduced games to
Mm,
such an extent that they become worthless. And that's why they all
yeah.
got thrown into landfills and
Oh,
in
yeah.
bucket.
The
Is
famous
this
ET
also?
story.
Yeah,
As I
so
say, is this
Nintendo.
where the Nintendo Gold Seal of Approval sort of
Yes.
started to kick in?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Yeah.
They didn't want to go down the same road as Atari, and they did the right thing at the right time. Obviously, it doesn't work now. They held on to that kind of way of thinking for too long, probably.
Mm,
With regional locking and all that kind of stuff. But back then, it worked for them. It got them out of a crash. And there were still other companies like Tenjin that were making knockoffs, I think, for the NES.
oh, right, okay.
Unlicensed games. I'm not quite sure of the history of it, but yeah, I mean, they did well. I don't think they had any other competitors at that time, really. Oh, they had this Master System, didn't they? But I don't think it was anywhere near as popular as the NES.
No, no. So, I mean, just for me personally, I don't have a lot of memories of the NES because I never had one at the time.
I didn't
So,
either. I've got no nostalgia for it
no, I
whatsoever.
no. But
I've
I like
never owned one.
the one thing I do remember when I was very young. One of my neighbours had a NES with Duck Hunt, and
Mhm.
I must have only been about 6 or 7. But I just remember, like, I was blown away. I was like, "Wow, you got this gun! You can shoot the ducks on the screen!" And it just felt so futuristic at the time. It's
Yeah,
just fucking awesome.
I only started collecting for it when I used to go around the car boots with Paul with Stunty. I
Oh
used to
yeah,
find him. What is this system? I've never heard of this system. Honestly, I had never heard of it. I left school in '87. All
yeah,
through my childhood, it was all about Sinclair Spectrum and the BBC Micro, and the occasional mate had a Commodore 64, and that was it. Through my whole of my childhood, I'd collect for those systems. And then when I left school, got into music. I guess that was about the time it was released. So, and I wasn't really into video games then. I was
mm,
getting into music. So, totally
yeah,
passed me by
yeah,
until I got into car booting and retro games again when I started the YouTube channel up. I thought, oh, this got a cool system, really, and started collecting for it and found, a huge back catalogue of amazing games. And I
yeah,
love the sound chip to the NES as well. I really do love the sound chip. It has got an arcade feel to it, which I like, and it's very simple. Um, and the games are just really fun to play. I love it.
Also, unlike Sega, I think Nintendo have always had pretty good and unique sound chips in a lot of their systems. I
Yeah,
mean, obviously the NES was decent, the Super NES was fantastic, and even the Game Boy
yeah,
had a really good sound chip in that. I mean, everyone can kind of remember all the chip tunes, and a lot of it is Game Boy related that sort of the some of the musicians made popular.
yeah.
yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, they're so recognisable today, aren't they? And people have, I think, with Tetris drummed into everybody's head back in the day.
Oh
You can
yeah.
hear it now, can't you?
And for
And
me
even,
personally, I think the term video games actually originated, in my opinion, from the NES. It probably didn't, but the NES console was most like a video player out of all of them. You lifted
yeah,
the flap up, you pushed the thing in, then popped it down, flap back down. It was probably
yeah.
the most video like gaming system we've had.
To listen to the rest of this week's awesome episode, you need to subscribe to the Patreon. So head on over to patreon.com/360gamercast. From there, you can sign up from as little as £5 a month. This episode is over 2 hours long, talking about arcade games, the NES and the SNES, the history of the systems, our favourite games and memories. And in the outtakes, you get to hear Darren talk about his purchase of the PSVR 2. Also, when you're subscribed to the Patreon, you get full access to the back catalogue of podcasts that we have done exclusive for the Patreons. That includes a lot of podcasts on the history of the Xbox consoles, the Sega consoles, and now we're doing the Nintendo consoles. So you can go back and listen to those, and also our awesome music special. There's a lot of content there for you to get your teeth into. Also, if you are subscribed to the Patreon for 2 months or more, you are entered into the monthly draw to win more video game vouchers of your choice, and I'll be setting that up properly in about a week or two. So you need to subscribe if you want to be entered into that. So again, the website is patreon.com/360